Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And this week I'm doing films that are in honor of some of the celebrities that recently passed away. And today we are doing a movie in honor of Shannen Doherty. Now, my favorite film that she's in is Mallrats, but a few months ago I did the entire Kevin Smith collection, so I've already done that film. Feel free to check out that review at any time. So I'm going to do my second favorite film with Doherty, and that is the 1988 movie Heathers. Here is your trivia question for today. Name one of the five items JD leaves with Kurt and Ram's bodies to allude they were a gay couple. The answers will be at the end of this episode, and hey, bonus points if you know all five of them. So, in the film Heathers, we meet our main character, Veronica, who very much wants to be part of the popular girls clique, which are three other girls named Heather. The Heathers seem to find a good use of Veronica by the fact that she has the ability to copy anyone's handwriting, and they use that to mess with a lot of people. One day at school, Veronica runs into one of the new students, JD, who she very quickly seems to have an interest in. Although we very quickly realize that there is something off about JD. Veronica and JD seem to fall into romance very quickly. One day, Veronica heads over to Heather Chandler's house. JD joins her, and he is not a fan of Heather. He jokingly mentions that Veronica should get Heather to drink some drain cleaner, and then, in a moment that is either potentially on purpose or possibly a mistake, she does end up drinking it. And then Heather is no more. In a moment of panic, JD suggests that Veronica write a death note to make it seem like this was all Heather's plan. This entire turn of events ends up changing a lot of things at the school, and especially for the other two Heathers. JD seems to enjoy this newfound activity that he and Veronica took part in, and manages to trick her into doing it once again on two of the jocks at the school. It's about this time that Veronica realizes that JD is a full on psychopath. So, will Veronica figure out some way of stopping him, or will JD figure out a way of taking out the entire student body? This movie was directed by Michael Lehman. The character of Veronica is played by Winona Ryder. Now, other actresses that were also up for that role were Jennifer Connelly, Dana Delaney, Justine Bateman, Shannen Doherty, and Kim Walker. 1988 was pretty big for Winona Ryder, as Beetlejuice also came out that same year, and what's interesting is Glenn Shaddix played in both of those films, as Father Ripper in this one and as Otho in Beetlejuice. Christian Slater plays the character of JD in this film, and he has stated his performance was inspired by Jack Nicholson. Other actors that were also up for the role of JD were Brad Pitt, Jim Carrey, Judd Nelson, Jason Bateman, and Johnny Depp. JD's catchphrase of greetings and salutations is actually a line from E.B. White's book, Charlotte's Web. You may not have been aware of this, but during production, Christian Slater and Winona Ryder were dating briefly. However, when production first began, Slater was in fact dating Kim Walker. No real word on how that changed from Walker to Ryder. Now, one thing about that I do find very interesting is the fact that Walker originally tried out for the role of Veronica, but they didn't give her that role as they were worried that her relationship with Slater would cause an issue, and they decided to give her the role of Heather Chandler. Shannen Doherty, by the way, originally was offered the role of Heather Chandler, but she turned it down as she preferred the character of Heather Duke. Here's something you may also not know. Tori Spelling saw this film and was actually the one who suggested to her father, Aaron Spelling, that Shannen Doherty would be a great addition to 90210. And in a strange twist of fate, Fox Network was looking at potentially making a Heather's television series, but instead ended up going with 90210. Heather McNamara was played by Lizanne Falk, but that role almost went to Heather Graham, except for the fact that Graham's mother did not like how dark the story was. Drew Barrymore auditioned for an undisclosed role in this film. Here are some interesting facts about names in the film. The characters Veronica Sawyer and Betty Finn are in fact named after Veronica and Betty from the Archie comics. JD is named after both JD Salinger and James Dean. The two police officers that find Kurt and Ram are named Milner and McCord, which were named after Kent McCord, and Martin Milner from Adam 12, the television series. The school is called Westerberg High, which is named for Paul Westerberg, the lead singer of The Replacements. Speaking of names, the name Heather is said 90 times throughout the film. Also, after this film came out, people naming their baby Heather saw a decline. Here's some things you may or may not have noticed in the film. After every death, you can hear a crow caw. In the film, JD calls the supposed fake bullets Ich lüge, which in German means I lie or I'm lying. And if you didn't notice this, right before saying the name, he asks Veronica if she knows German. For a little bit, it was semi common for students to underline passages in Catcher in the Rye right before unaliving themselves. They couldn't get the rights for that book, so instead they used Moby Dick. The original ending in the script had Veronica shooting JD and then using the bomb on herself and the school. And then there would be an eerie prom sequence that took place in heaven at the end. This was considered too dark. Another alternate ending they almost went with was Martha was going to stab Veronica, calling her Heather and leaving her there to die. Now, in her last words, Veronica would just be heard saying, "My name's not Heather." Writer of the film, Daniel Waters, did come up with a sequel called Heathers 2. In it, Winona Ryder would come back to play Veronica, who is now a page for a senator that is also named Heather, and hopefully this character would be played by Meryl Streep. Unfortunately, nothing ever came of this script. Now here's some trivia related to music. The band in the film, Big Fun, was a fictional band. There's an electro rock pop punk band called the Veronicas, which named their band after Veronica Sawyer, Winona Ryder's character from this film. The band, from first to last, used a quote from this film, "Dear Diary, my teen angst has a body count," as the title of their debut album. The ska punk band Edna's Goldfish has a song called Veronica Sawyer named after the character. For a dark comedy that deals with a lot of death, the body count for this film is only 4. This movie was entirely filmed in California. In 2014, a musical theater adaptation was created. And starting in 2018, there was a television series adaptation. So when it comes to the film Heathers, some of the things I liked about this movie are that it felt like an interesting blend of a Tim Burton and a John Waters film. It's also very quotable. Now, at the same time, though, I do feel that the story wasn't all that cohesive, so I think I'm going to have to give this one a 3 out of 5. And if you enjoyed this film, other movies I recommend checking out are Jawbreaker, Serial Mom, Mean Girls, and Massacre at Central High. Now it's time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. Name one of the 5 items JD leaves with Kurt and Ram's bodies to allude they were a gay couple. Those items were a copy of Stud Puppy magazine, a candy dish, a Joan Crawford postcard, mascara, and apparently the most damning evidence, mineral water. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.